Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the 22 panels. Love and Rock, or not Love and Rockets. This is not Love and Rockets. This is Milestone. Icon and Rocket is what we read today, so it got my head all confused.
We got the love and the rocket and the yeah.
Yeah, yeah. the Milestone Book Club. I have the Brothers Anderson, not related. We're continuing our way through the first season of the uh new Milestone. Um, And I'm going to start with something that I thought was cool that I think will, because today I read Icon and Rocket because that's simply going to be our focus. But I also went back since I realized that I had the single issues that I read the static in initially, but I realized that the trade paperback is on Hoopla.
Mm.
So after there was a really good introduction to Icon and Static, I'm like, I bet you there's a good introduction to or Icon and Rocket. I bet you there's a good introduction to Static too. So I went back and I read it, and it's Reginald Hudlin talking about everything coming together. And there was one point that he made that I thought was really important and is why these comics are so good. He said that right off the bat, they said we don't want Milestone 2.0 to be like a nostalgia thing. We want it to be fresh and relevant today the way Milestone was in 94.
Hmm.
Nobody's here just to pay lip service to the heroes and try to get the people who grew up on them to come out. We want the kids of today to read them and go, yeah, that's me. Um,
Hmm.
Yeah.
and I thought that was really cool.
That is interesting. I'll admit that I skipped past the introductions. I saw I saw just enough of the Icon and Rocket introduction, and I'm like, oh crap, that's a spoiler, and I like swiped past the rest of it because I mean, it's not a
It
huge spoiler,
is.
but it's something that happens later in the book, and I was like, ah man, so I flipped right past it, but I'm interested now to go back and read it. Um,
Yeah. Um. Oh, yeah. I was gonna say, obviously having read both, and really read the original run like when it was coming out, and just truly appreciating it. I have to say, I really, yeah, I love this, and like that assessment, you just were speaking about, Tad, that Reginald Hudlin had about not just doing like a rehash or anything. Like, that's so true. To the extent where, this is a quick anecdote, and there's also advice for any of you comic creators out there. We all have our projects we're working on and our dream projects in the back of our head. Um, I really enjoyed this, and I was a little bit mad because I have a top secret project that has been in my brain for and a little bit in my sketchbook for, like, I'm not lying, like 15 years, and I haven't done it yet. And it's not exactly this. Like, this hasn't ruined it, but it's like, I'm like, I'm gonna have
it's
to
just
reconfigure. Well, to the extent where I feel like I'm gonna have to reconfigure certain aspects of it, and that's the highest praise because I have good ideas. But
yeah.
what it is in the story of mine, which will deal with superheroes, but it won't necessarily be the whole punch punch bang bang. It's I really wanted to get into, like, well, what are the real world ramifications? You know what I mean? Because you see superheroes doing international stuff. You know what I mean? And, like, they may
Yeah.
have, like, ramifications in the sense of, a villain, or maybe a Soviet villain, or somebody, like, squaring up with them, but you don't necessarily see it spill over into international relations, or just like messing up an economy. So I guess that's a quick segue into the fact that I love about this run, that, Rocket's core motivations, Raquel's core motivations, and we should do a brief recap, but they definitely, mirror her previous ones, but it's definitely updated. And she's essentially like, drugs have ravaged my community, and I just want to see them gone, which is totally understandable. But this story conceit of the fact that Icon and Rocket, like, taking their abilities and really essentially shutting down the drug trade, not just in Dakota City but beyond, has, like, these huge ramifications because which is really it's just really cool, you know what I mean? Because it kind of gets into the idea that um the economy, the ever-present economy that everybody worships and speaks about, it's complicated and there's so much wrapped up in it. You know what I mean? And so I don't know. I love that aspect of this story, but I guess we should recap a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you- yeah. I mean, let me. I'll start, and then you if you want to jump in, Ted.
I only
But
just read it today. I had some trouble getting my hands on the volume, but it'll
okay.
help me remind myself too.
Okay, I'm gonna be like super brief because I don't feel like I need to give every blow by blow. But essentially, like if anybody's listened to us before when we spoke about 1993, I'm gonna call it the old series Icon and Rocket as well because it was Icon and Rocket. But you know, we a lot of the big beats are the same in the sense that you know, Icon Augustus is an alien who was on a an international alien ship essentially that was sabotaged. He tried to save everybody. He also faced off against this shape-shifting alien terrorist on the ship. But he wasn't able to save everybody, and so he had to take an escape pod, crashed on planet Earth, landed here in I believe the 1800s. During a time of enslavement, and he was rescued by an enslaved husband and wife in America, and they the ship recognized their DNA, and in order to sort of imprint and create the best case scenario, it was programmed to make him take the form of somebody that they would empathize with, which was a baby, and the baby
I love that
looked like
justification.
them.
Yeah, I love that
Yeah,
justification, by the way. Like, there's always like that was in the original too, of like, oh yeah, it made him look like a baby. But this gives the justification that, like, well, if it's an intelligent species, it probably won't kill its own young.
right.
So if an intelligent species touches it, it opens up and makes it and like shapeshifts you into looking like a baby. I thought that was
Yeah.
just sort of laying it out specifically why this works. I thought that was a nice touch. But yeah,
Yeah, it was a cool touch. And just jumping ahead, well, I won't jump ahead just yet. But anyway, I'm gonna try to speed through. I'm not gonna take too long. But so long story short, I feel like they really get into it because in the original series we did see a brief snippet early on of the um the ship crashing and Icon landing, but I don't know, maybe I'm not remembering it correctly, but it seems like we got a little bit more backstory up front, because they
I think
definitely filled in backstory later, right?
yeah,
Previously.
from what I remember, so the whole first issue of the new Icon of Rocket is essentially it's all stuff from the original series. It's Icon's backstory, and then it's also him and Raquel's first meeting, which is largely the same.
Right. Yeah, very very similar.
Raquel's boyfriend and his crappy friends convince her to break in. They get found by Icon, who's still got his bare chest out in his robe.
Yeah, yeah.
um, and all that is more or less the same, but they actually give us Icon's backstory. But for the most part, I don't remember getting that in the original series for many issues later of like
Right.
exactly where he came from. And like they dribble it out. They
They
dribble out
give,
that
yeah,
like, yeah,
little
he's 200
pieces.
years old.
Yeah.
He's an alien, but we don't know the full. Yeah.
Yeah, and to your point, like I think one thing that we get a lot more of this series, and I think it's something with the benefit of hindsight, and also with the benefit of having listened to people's opinion about Icon the character in the past, I think we get a lot more perspective on him. We also see that he wasn't just like a finger wagging guy that's just like, oh, everybody can make it if they just try. You know what I mean? You see that he
Yeah.
like had been putting his money where his mouth was, you know, freeing black people, just fighting the good fight on multiple fronts, over the years. And there's an interesting exchange where I think Raquel is challenging him maybe on being a little bit more conservative minded
You
or not
should
just
do
not be.
something.
Yeah, and well, not necessarily in their first meeting. Sorry, I'm gonna jump back
Okay.
and forth a lot because like this is all you know what I mean. I have so much I want to talk about, but there is a point where she's challenging him, and he actually counters like thoughtfully, and I'm forgetting exactly what he says, but he says something to the effect of what does he say? He says something that like he's been living as a black man for a long time, and then yes, and then Raquel like challenges him and essentially is like, yeah, so like you're basically carrying like a slave mind and thinking like somebody who's more subservient. And he
Yeah.
actually counters with the fact that because he's basically seen the whole of Black American history, that it's not that he has a more subservient mind. He's got like more perspective. And a part of that is, you know, wanting to see his people free. So it's a little, it adds a little complication to it because you know, a lot of people, I've been in a lot of conversations about people who love Milestone, and we'll talk about how like Icon as a character is their least favorite because of the idea that, like, you know, he's just a dude who, you know, is kind of like rich and out of touch. But you know, I would say even previous Icon was a little bit more than that, but Raquel definitely helped him grow. And that's there in this telling as well. But I do think that he's allowed a level of complexity. Also, I don't think that Raquel really had to twist his arm that much in this telling too. You know what I mean? Like
No.
initially, he's like,
Which
you know,
actually briefly had me sitting there going,
what do you mean?
I mean, but particularly, I didn't notice it when it happened, but
Mhm.
particularly when things started shifting to all of the repercussions of having gotten rid of the drug trade and how it was messing up with
Yes,
the global market. And he started making comments about,
how
you
he had seen
know,
it coming, right?
Yeah.
and you could make a lot of money off of it.
Oh yes, yeah, you're right. Yeah,
I'm sitting there going, oh, please, dear God, don't have it turn out that Icon is
Oh,
like the Reaganite to the nth degree. And so far we haven't seen that, but that thought went through my head.
no, we
yeah.
didn't
That
see
he'd been
that he'd been profiting the whole time. No, we didn't get that. Although we did, I mean, okay, so
Yeah.
I found myself disliking this or not liking it as much as original Icon and Rocket. And part of that is because the original focused so much specifically on Dakota. And I mean that's both a hindrance and a help for what kind of story it was telling because like it was so specifically about Raquel's experiences, and then of course we had like the whole Raquel pregnancy storyline in those early issues, and we had more of her being grounded in Dakota. Whereas here, it almost immediately jumped to, well, if you're going to try and attack drugs in Dakota, you have to attack drugs everywhere. And so then, literally, like the second issue, they're flying off to Colombia, or like third issue. And
Mhm.
that I didn't like as much just because I like Icon and Rocket. I like all the Milestone characters being very strongly tied
To
to
Dakota.
Dakota. And that's partly a preference. Like, that's partly me just liking the whole idea of Dakota as a setting more than anything else. And it also, like, I don't know. There's a fragment of a moment where like Raquel realizes that like, oh crap, now the economy is completely tanking and everything's going crazy, and
Mhm.
I don't think this is the intention, but Icon says something that makes me kind of see like, well, yeah, I told you so. It's like, yeah, man, of course he screwed up the entire. You wanted to try it. It seemed a little like. I don't think this is the intention with his character, but it made
Right.
him seem a little bit like, well, we tried it your way. I told you what was going to happen, and it made him seem kind of like a dick. That
Right.
again,
Well, for what it's worth, and I hear what you're saying, like the moment in the first issue when he it's brief. It's like a brief flashback panel, but it's when essentially Raquel is trying to convince him to take this path, right? And he flashes back to his wife in the past,
yes,
like, and you see that she had really challenged him in very similar ways. Um, and you know, and so you know,
I
it's
like
just a
that a
slight,
lot. Yeah.
yeah, it's a slight nod to the fact that, yeah, it's not just like this child, you know, came along with people who were trying to rob me and essentially had a change of heart, and then I had a change of heart. It's kind of like, no, this reminded him of something. Also with Icon, there's an element of you know, loss and everything, with the
Yeah.
fact that he like outlives, you know, the love of his life. And you know, so he's just been, you know, doing his lawyer thing and essentially living alone, this lonely life of
He's
acting
got that
like he's his
experience.
descendant over and over again. Yeah.
I do.
So
I mean, there was the way that Icon came off originally is like it is a little with the benefit of hindsight, he does come off as kind of a I don't want to say privileged exactly, but like the
it
fact that he
is.
had superpowers for 200 years and basically never used them. I mean, there's been like retcons, there's been sort of fill in the blanks bits of his history, but for the most part,
Mhm.
while the original Icon was on Earth, he basically never really tried to change things from what we saw.
Mhm.
Again, there have been, I think, some miniseries that sort of filled in the blanks, but from what we saw, he was mostly just kind of doing his own thing. And this series is taking this and wondering, okay, he is a black man living at a time when most black men were enslaved in America. He couldn't have not responded in some way. He couldn't have not engaged with these systems in some way. Why did he? How did he? What did he change? What didn't change? Who responded? What was the different life of this icon? And that I mean, that's more, I don't want to say realistic because we are still talking about a guy who flies and shoots lasers out his eyes. It's more realistic in the sense that it's trying to build a character who genuinely was interacting with the systems around, with the world around him. And that is something you want to see. But it's I'm trying to think how to phrase this properly because it's difficult to say specifically what I liked. I mean, the original Icon was sort of a tragic figure. He had this sort of tragic nobility of like he always knew it was doomed. He never really tried it because like what's the point? He's just going to outlive everybody, and then he just wants to get off Earth and get his spaceship fixed. And
Mhm.
this Icon is trying, but he's constantly either getting his achievements hidden or only doing like covert missions for the U.S. government, which has its own kind
Oh
of weird
yeah.
flavor when you realize
Yeah.
that, where you're like, yeah, then the NSA shows up and like, yeah, you did want to work for this in the past. And I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, Icon doing secret missions for the United States government, like through the
Absolutely.
20th century. That's a little hinky though. Like I'm a little bit
Well,
like,
yeah, it definitely
really?
complicates him. You know what I
It,
mean?
yeah,
It's
but in a way that I don't know, in a way that I didn't really like.
right.
I don't know. I wanted
Can
that
I?
to inform his character more, but
Yeah.
sorry.
No, no,
I don't
no. I
know. I
just.
mean,
Oh, go ahead.
uh, this goes a little bit to what I was saying, and particularly knowing that I haven't read it yet, but that one of the next volumes is Icon versus Hardware.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And the old Icon is supposed to make you feel uncomfortable. He's the black man that doesn't necessarily fit to what we expect. He's a Reagan Republican. He's,
Bootstraps
um,
and
right. So,
Well, I think it's okay for black men that fit what you might expect. That being said, it's uh the Reagan philosophy was super destructive to black
absolutely.
people in the black community. So that's where it is kind of like it's that disconnect
But
of
but 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 that doesn't mean that we don't have Tim Scotts and Byron Donalds in the world, or Clarence Thomases in the world. So, uh, there are stories to be told. Trying to figure out where he's not somebody that we're 100% behind all the time, where he did decide that the thing to do was to do covert operations for the government because he believed in it or because it paid well or whatever, because he didn't view it necessarily as his job to just be out for truth, justice, and the American way.
so my
I
read,
Um,
yeah. No, go ahead, Ted.
I mean, another way to think about it, I feel like the original Icon changed more in the original series. We got to see him accept, okay, maybe if I am stuck on here on Earth, maybe I'll try to be more of a superhero. Whereas this Icon, he read to me as a guy who's like, well, I tried being a superhero, back in the 1860s and various times throughout the 20th century. It's never changed before, and he's not ever
Well,
really proven wrong in this
yeah.
series.
Also, something there's a couple things to consider. Like, so one thing, my read on the covert stuff is it's it's an update, right? So, um, for the 1980s, like being or 90s, right, being a Reaganite and on some bootstrap stuff, at a time when these policies, this war on drugs, everything, these policies have been put in place that just impact generations on generations, break homes, etc., in the black community. Like that is, like Reagan and Bush essentially dropped a bomb on the black community in a larger sense, right? And so, and so to be a Reaganite during that time is to be just totally working against your own best interest or your people's best interest. So to me, like if you're modernizing it, like the idea that this superpower man who has done good and fought the good fight in the past, like is also on the side of the Empire, essentially, like that is like that to me that's almost like
Uh,
a just a
See, you
different
use so much
vein of
better
that.
words, but that's essentially what I was trying to say.
Yeah, it's a different vein of that to me. The other thing,
And at least really quick, in terms of not seeing a character development, I
mhm,
mean, we're 6 issues into modern
right.
Icon, and even in what we've read for the book club, we've read like a dozen issues of the old Icon, and I
Hmm.
know that most of us have read more than that.
Yeah, and I've read more,
So
yeah.
so to not
Yeah.
see the character development yet doesn't mean it's not coming. It just means it's not there yet.
Yeah. And I do think there is development, like, because like the heart of the series has always been, you know, there's a reason it's Icon and Rocket. It's not just because they're a superhero team. It's because they're, two seemingly diametrically opposed, black figures who, and Rocket like propels, pun intended, him to like see things differently and see the world differently. The other thing I want to point out is it's interesting that because Icon definitely drops that Rocket's he couldn't help himself as far as like helping Rocket with her plan, but like his plan prior to that had been to lay low specifically because he knew what's the other guy's name? The other basically the
Benedict,
shape-shifting alien that we
Right.
referenced
yeah, Benedict
Yeah.
before.
Lord.
Yeah, Benedict
Benedict
Lord
Lord.
is still out there. And back in the, 1800s when Icon had enough and basically chased these slave owners off the land and established a free colony for black people where they would be under protection. He was holding it down for a while and of course the mob came and tried to get him, and Benedict at a certain point just came and essentially like his body is almost like Icon's kryptonite. And actually remind me to come back to kryptonite in a minute. But he because he stabbed Icon, like Icon was seemingly dead, but we found out later he was in a coma for a long time, and then he came back too. But he was laying low because he knew that Benedict is out there, and he had basically been waiting for his opportunity. But Benedict got the chance to see him coming because of the fact that, his Icon's name essentially is all over the news. The other kryptonite connection, which was funny. Like there's little nods to other DC stuff in this run, and
Yeah, the one where like
it,
Benedict turned out to have murdered Superman when he just
yeah,
Yeah,
fled.
in the
that
crib,
I thought that was a very interesting.
yeah. Well, it is
I mean,
interesting.
essentially completely solidifying it as a separate universe.
Yeah.
Right, right.
Um,
Which, because I read ahead, that's definitely the case in the old Milestone as well. But yeah, go ahead.
Hmm.
but
Yeah.
I
So
thought
yeah, so there's
Superman
a scene
crossed
where
over with Milestone.
what's that?
I thought Superman crossed over with
He
Milestone.
did, but it's I'm literally in the middle of reading the Worlds Collide stuff
Gotcha.
in book 2. So like he does cross
I'll
over,
get
but
to it soon, but it's a
it's
weird thing.
established that it's not like Superman from their universe. It's Superman
Okay.
from a different universe. And the not just Superman, you see other DC characters, Superboy and everything. But we will get to
Okay.
that in the
Yep,
future
we
on the
will
Milestone Book Club.
soon.
Um, but yeah, like so yeah, so there's a scene where Benedict is talking about like how his mission is essentially to find other aliens on Earth and wipe them out, and you see a scene of him in Kansas, and they're not named, but it's clearly Ma and Pa Kent running away from the
Yeah.
Kal-El's crashed spacecraft, and then you see it's terrible. You see Benedict going to kill little Clark in the crib.
Little baby
Um,
Clark.
yeah. So, but it's cool. And then there was the other. Did you guys catch the other?
The fact that like apparently one of Benedict's nicknames is the Manhunter from Mars.
Oh yeah, there's that.
Yeah.
Yep, there's that. And then also there's a brief scene which I loved issue 4 and actually issue 4, um, to your point, Ted, like you definitely do get take issue 4 is one of my favorites. And it is because I realize it's because they came back to Dakota, and issue 4 is basically a battle like across Dakota. Um, and you do get like little things, like there's a scene with like the barbershop and everything.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, I like that because you had been on this kind of international mission for like maybe issue 3, but issue 4 like drops you right in Dakota, and there's a lot of interaction. You see Rocket interacting with Dakota, and then there's all the stuff with Rocket's mother. So it's really cool. But like, wait, what was my point? Oh, in issue 4, like, so as the battle is raging across Dakota, there's like one panel where like stuff's getting really crazy. Everybody's running, but then you just see one young man, with like a newsboy cap, reading a comic book, which is the Black Freighter, and
The Tales of
yeah, yeah,
the
yeah, yeah. So
Watchmen.
it's clearly the kid from Watchmen that's always reading the pirate comic book.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, I like that issue too because again, like you said, it was a little more grounded. And it's just, I mean, if I had to sum up what made me like this less, and again, like I don't hate it. It's um I just am not I feel like the original Icon series is more successful in its aims because they were writing for much longer sections than just a 6 issue miniseries plus future miniseries if possible. But like one of the things I had I disliked a little more was that this is doing a lot because it's trying to do Rocket's entire storyline of being this, girl from the ghetto who's trying to become a writer who's I like that she still had the thing of wanting a typewriter. And then at
mhm.
one point, like her boyfriend even tries to win her back by having stolen a typewriter for her, or maybe I bought it from a pawn shop. I forget. Um, like Rocket's whole thing of trying to make the world a better place, and this is the way we're going to do it. But then it also gets into the geopolitics of like, well, you can't just clean up one city; you have to clean up the whole world. And then if you do that, that's going to disrupt the global economy, which is that's fine stuff, but it takes the focus so off of it's more about the systems involved than it is about the individuals. And I really love the individuals in this comic. I mean, Icon and Rocket as a character duo are so good that I wanted to see just the two of them kind of bouncing off each other rather than, burning up opium fields in Afghanistan or stuff like that. And
I mean,
then we also have, the shape-shifting alien terrorist slash assassin. And then we also have Xiomara, who's as far as I can tell, is a
mhm,
totally new character to the Milestone
right,
Returns universe,
yeah,
who's sort of a I don't know what to
sort of
call her.
Amazonian,
Yeah, she's
maybe.
kind of a Wonder Woman character in the sense that she also represents a third way of heroism distinct from Icon's superheroism and Rocket's ground level idealism. I don't know. I mean, she was an interesting character, but it made it feel so kind of overstuffed to me to have all these characters when I really wanted them to dig in specifically on Icon and Rocket. I mean, they're the ones with the names in the book, but like I don't know. I feel like they only really had 2 or 3 good conversations throughout the
I,
whole book where they're not like flying around the world in his spaceship that he has. I don't know.
I don't know. What's interesting? Like, this is my second time reading because I read these issues as they came out, and this is the first time I read them since after having digested them the first time, and I thoroughly enjoyed it like the first time, but like this time, I don't know. It was I kind of don't feel like that. Like for me, I think you did get the interaction. You just had it in different ways. Like I will say, thinking back to the original run, there were yes, there were like a lot of moments when those conversations were happening, like maybe not in the middle of the battlefield. You know what I'm saying? And like,
Yeah.
um, and you got more of that. And the pace of this run is very snappy. Like
Yeah.
there's always something happening. I liked it though. Like I actually liked. So I like stuff like where, for instance, you maybe don't get a ton of time in the first, 4 or 5 issues of Raquel and her mom. And her mom was a big part of the original series too.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but you kind of it's interesting. You see their connection, and you see, and there's a little suspense in the fact that, with this whole, uh, government, because the government at a certain point is like, all right, Icon, we tried to, get you to play by our rules, and you're not willing to, so basically we're gonna sick Benedict on you. And there. So as that's happening, Benedict goes for the loved ones, and
Yeah.
and then I don't know, I really like that. I like that battle. I like the kind of like desperate race to get back. I like Zamora. Like I don't know, it's different to me, and I think the way I took it in, I think with this whole milestone run, I just was really ready for something different, to see like familiar faces, but just like a story that's not beholden to what came before. And
That's fair.
I
Yeah.
mean, I think it's very natural. It's always gonna be natural to compare, to a beloved thing from before. But I think just for me, I just felt okay with like really looking at this as something else. The one
That's
thing I
fair.
was gonna say is like we didn't get to speak about this Static season one as much as I liked. I wanted to, but like I really liked Static season one. I actually felt like, whereas in the first run, I think all the books were fun, but I mean, hardware was intense, so maybe I wouldn't say fun as much
Yeah.
for
Hardware
hardware.
was oof. Yeah.
Right, but Icon and Static, were fun books. But Static is definitely the one where if you had to say out of any Milestone book, it's the fun one. Static got really real as well and dealt with serious issues, but there was like a lot of like, humor and fun, and we both talked about and agreed with the fact that the season one, maybe didn't have as much of like the quippiness and the fun stuff. It was there in the, even in some of like the kids' interactions and their little jokes that they were cracking on each other. Um, but it was less so because that run was really doing a lot. And I actually appreciated what Static Season 1 did. But they were juggling a lot. They were really delving into the family dynamics and just the heart therein, a lot. There's a lot of yeah, it just was, and there was a lot with the plots essentially, to snatch up the meta kids and all of that. And so
Yeah.
it was juggling a lot. I felt like this one, it actually, like the fun, or maybe just little bits of like humor, or that type of stuff. I actually felt it a little bit more in this one than maybe in Static, which feels counterintuitive because Static is one we always think of as the fun one. He's a kid with the quips and everything, but like I felt
Yeah.
like it was there a little bit more with
I feel
this.
like, I mean, definitely the new Static was more serious feeling. It was still pretty funny, but it felt
Yeah,
more serious than old school Static.
yeah,
And
definitely.
original Icon didn't feel particularly funny. I mean, it had some moments, but it
It
didn't
definitely
feel.
had stuff though. Like it was subtle. It was subtle. Like
Yeah.
I'm thinking about like Buck Wild and stuff like
Oh
that. But
God, Buck. So that's I gotta say, sidebar. When I saw that the title of issue three is it's something with Buck in it. What is it? The title of issue three had the word Buck in it.
well,
Or issue four. Issue four. And I was so excited because I thought Buck Wild, like, it's
no,
actually I'm just
you know what these titles are. They're the names of classic hip hop songs. So
okay.
like,
I recognize Cream and I recognize a couple of the other ones. I didn't
yeah,
recognize
yeah,
that
yeah,
one, I guess.
yeah.
I was excited because I thought Buck Wild, well, okay, I shouldn't say I excited because it's not like Buck Wild is an interesting character to try and see updated, is really what it is. Because he was already an embarrassing figure in the original series. I was wondering how they were
Well,
going to handle him.
he was really it was really Dwayne McDuffie's, commentary, and it was him getting to
Yeah.
vent about some things that had always bothered him,
Yeah.
which is fair.
And
Um
actually, this made me think of, in a weird way, have any of y'all seen the new American Born Chinese TV series on Disney
yeah,
Plus?
yeah, yeah.
I've only
Haven't
watched the
yet.
first episode.
Mm.
So I don't know what they do with it, but I was really interested to see how they updated the equivalent of the sitcom plot in that book, because
It's
that,
there.
like, yeah, well, it's there, and
Yeah.
it's done in an interesting way
I
where they
don't
bring
want
in
to
Ke Huy
spoil it. Oh, you
Quan
did
as
see it. Oh,
I saw that.
did
Yeah,
they get
like I
to
said,
that
that
part? Okay, yeah,
that
yeah,
first episode, and I know that Ke
yeah,
Huy Quan comes back and has a bigger role, but
yeah.
like just seeing that he's there, but like that stuff has sort of been shifted into, oh, there was this sitcom in the 90s that now
Right.
is having kind of a resurgence on TikTok.
Yeah.
And so like finding a way to have those same criticisms of media representations of Asian Americans in a different way, in a different light, sort of made me excited for, like, oh crap, what can they do with Buck Wild to do a similar thing of like what could you possibly do to have Buck Wild still be in here as a character, because Buck Wild also is a character like, yeah, he was just, God, there's what they do with Buck Wild is more interesting than it seems like they're going to end up doing. Because, like you said, he starts off and he is absolutely, yeah, he's Dwayne McDuffie being like, this is the shit we've had to put up with for so long. But they also end up doing some interesting things with him that, like, yeah, I don't know.
I think there's a lot of
he still is, because he's the bully, but he's the white bully. So when he offers to be,
oh wait, you're thinking of somebody else? Are you thinking of? You might be thinking of. Are you talking about Static's bully?
Yeah.
Oh no, Buck Wild is the character in the '93 run who was the Luke Cage analog and parody. Okay. Luke Cage parody, I should say.
Gotcha.
Buck Wild mercenary man whose exclamations were like jive turkey and sweet Christmas.
Have we gotten to him, or have I?
No, not in the.
You may not have. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Look, you know me.
So this is
I can't stop reading Milestone.
Okay.
Like
no, that's okay. Okay, that's okay.
Same.
And I had read him previously.
I knew that they'd made pretty major changes to the bullies. I spaced out for a second. What
I
heard made me think that that's what we were talking
Actually,
about.
Francis the bully is kind of the same asshole. He is different in the sense that like he jumps right in with the cops. Authorities. Like he jumps right into with them.
Right.
But yeah.
And actually, speaking of classmates, I was interested that they've got more of that character. Is it? I think it's Darius, who's the like podcaster.
Yeah.
I like that he's. I forgot. I don't remember if in the original Milestone series whether Raquel and Static were at the same high school.
Were they?
Because
I don't know if you saw them in high school together, but where they did overlap is, and it was really cool how they did it, because in early issues of Static, he works at he works at a restaurant, and his boss is who he clashes with, is Mrs. Irvin. But they don't underline that it's Raquel's mom. He's just says like Mrs. Irvin, right. And obviously he gets fired because he has to keep making these these excuses for his superheroism. Yeah. And you know what I mean?
Forgot about that.
And then Miss Irvin stays in the story because Sharon, his sister, ends up working there. So he ends up going back, and so he Static like literally goes in to get some food and to harass his sister, and but then he overlaps with Raquel, and I think there was also he did try to flirt with her in the original run as well. Okay. Like at this point, he's like totally smitten with Raquel.
Yeah, I do. I kind of like having
kind of his thing.
Yeah, the would-be womanizer. I just really like.
I get that. That's like that fits in with the nerd.
It's the nerd. It's
he actually manages to say it out loud.
Yeah, I do have to say, like,
that might be, hey, I'm Spider-Man now, so I can say it out loud.
I do love that Virgil and Raquel now go to the same high school, because that makes so much sense, and it makes it so easy for them to interact as characters in a cool way. Like I did not see coming at all in issue whatever that is, issue 5, I think, when Raquel's getting beaten up by Benedict, who's shapeshifted his way. And then is now attacking her, and then out of nowhere, Static is the one who saves her. I did not see that coming, and it worked really cool. Like I had no idea that was going to happen, and it was a nice use of the crossover overlap thing. So I forgot that they had that full page splash where he's just about to and then Static shows up, and it was good. Anyway, I mean, I don't know. If anything, I feel like it was juggling a little too much, and also there's a whole lot of characters who, are new to the Milestone universe in general, because like there's Yomara isn't a character in there.
Is she an Amazon, or is she just?
I don't know if she's. They don't underline that she's. And matter of fact, I think when she's referred to as an Amazon by Rocket in more just of a colloquial sense, she maybe says something to the effect of that's not exactly what she is. I forget the exact thing that she says, but I don't think she's literally one. She might just be a nod to Amazons.
And she's like her character, the team that she's got, the love core, the love group. I don't know. Some of those characters have powers that, well, I mean, they're pretty standard superhero powers, I guess, but they were also similar to characters from the Shadow Cabinet. Like there's a little bit who can shrink, and then there's the speeder character. Or no, the speeder was one of the. Oh crap! I'm getting confused again. Anyway, I don't know exactly what they are,
this is why I generally don't read team books, man.
But see,
it's hard to keep track of everybody.
I don't know. I'm just curious what role she's going to play. I kind of feel like, I mean, if I'm guessing, I kind of feel like they wanted a character who could be a romantic interest for Icon. Like, and then
Oh
she,
yeah, no, that's definitely there. And I actually I like that aspect because
Yeah.
I mean, I think up until the point that I read in the original series, I don't think we got to see that side of him, too much.
that's fair. Yeah, I mean, we got the
Only in
flashbacks of
flashback.
Right,
yes.
flashbacks. Yeah.
We got his not his old wives, his previous wives on Earth, which I don't know. It's also yeah, like where we're getting in the original Milestone run is we're starting to get to the point where Icon's original alien life starts to come to the fore. Like Marcus, you said you've been reading ahead a little bit, like or well, you already know what a little bit of what happens with like Icon
Hmm.
and his alien stuff starting to become more of a major part in that book, which this is another thing. That's another one I have mixed feelings on because again, like I love having the focus on Dakota and that stuff in Icon, while interesting, it takes the focus off Dakota. And like I dislike that because it just I love seeing
Yeah.
this city and its unique, ecosystem of characters. And Icon sci-fi stuff was fine. It was fun, but it wasn't it
I
wasn't
think
what I
for
signed
what
up for.
it's worth,
I
it's
mean,
definitely the first run. I mean the first, just the first arc. Um, and yeah, like I do like Dakota too, and I agree in the sense, like I said, like issue 4 is one of my favorite, and because you got a lot of Dakota in that issue, but
Hmm.
but I
I
don't
think
know,
the one counterpoint I will make to that is that um, national and global issues very much play a part in shaping Dakota. Um, so I mean, if it's really looking at everything, bringing that in on some level is not necessarily a bad thing. And Icon makes sense as the one that would.
yes, definitely, yeah, because
Yeah,
it's, if anybody is going to be,
I
it
mean,
would be
particularly this iteration of Icon, where the world has thought that he was dead for 100 years, and he's been like carefully crafting his way back and figuring out where his enemies are and figuring out this, that, and the other thing. Um, he would be acutely aware of. I mean, that's one of the reasons that I kind of wonder if if it was altruism that made him jump with Rocket so quickly, or if he really quickly did the math in his head and figured out that he could profit off of it.
I
no,
actually
I
don't
don't.
think it's that. I don't think it's that. I think that it's really summed up in that flashback of his wife. I
I
really
did.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do love those. I mean, they used them sparingly in the original series too. I mean, there was that issue where Rocket's deciding whether or not to keep the baby or to have an abortion, and he has that long conversation about his wife in the like 1920s, and
Mhm.
like those elements that we see of Icon's life prior to the modern day, I really liked, and it does establish him as someone like, and that's I don't know. Maybe that's a little bit of the issues I'm having is that he's not, I mean, he's definitely not trying to profit off the drug trade, but he is like just the fact that he worked for undercover cops and for
Well, I didn't mean
undercover operations
profit
for
off the drug
America,
trade. Profit off of the
the
removal of the
destruction of the
drug
drug trade, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I don't, yeah, no, that
I
doesn't
mean,
read to me.
essentially short sell the banks, short sell,
Right.
you
Yeah.
Well, you
know,
know how I read that.
ready
I'm
to
gonna be
move
real with
in. You're
you
there.
guys. Wait, this is how I read that. I read that very much as like white folks have been getting paid off of doing, this type of short selling, etc., for so long, and there's really not any reason, Raquel, why you can't, since we're here already. That's how I read it, as less of like, you know, yeah, like let's insider trading is the bomb, and more of like, yo, this is what's happening. Rich people haven't got. If anything, I read it as like rich people didn't get rich by being smarter or working harder. They got rich because these are the games they play, and I'm telling you this game, and you could do it or you couldn't. So
Right.
Yeah.
I
No,
don't think it's the most ethical
I
thing.
don't, I don't disagree with you, Marcus, but he's also a very rich person.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably
Yeah.
because he, He knows how to. He's been alive for 200 years.
Right,
He's older than the stock market.
right.
Yeah.
I just like that. I don't mind. I don't mind it being complicated, and I also
I'm not saying that I think any of this is a bad thing. I'm
yeah,
saying
yeah.
that I think I wonder where, if all of the depth, I wonder if it's all the level of altruism that, I mean, because there is the point where he says, that he's going, when the technology is good enough, he's going home. And she's like, wait, what?
Well, yeah. I mean, think about it like this. I mean, altruism. I guess this is a trait that like people want to see in their heroes. And I
Right.
don't know that at this point I would call him altruistic. I don't even
Yeah.
think that specifically applies. And I don't know if it's meant to be. And then, to be quite honest, like there definitely was at least one moment like that in the previous run. It might not have been exactly the same, but I definitely remember, him voicing his intent to leave
Yeah.
and like, Raquel just feeling like that would be abandoning and etc.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's interesting because it's really interesting because essentially I think Icon could have the trait. Well, it's not established if he can shapeshift as easily as Benedict, but like he's essentially like a black man by choice in a world
Right.
that let's be real, like vilifies being
Right.
black on so many levels. Teaches you that beauty, grace, all of the above, any positive attribute is something to be attributed to the people who got to make the rules in the United States by through genocide and enslavement and violence. You know what I'm saying? So like
Yeah.
he's like by choice, like being black, which is interesting because on some level you could ask a question of like, oh, is Icon really black? But arguably, like he's super black because he's like
Right.
he's
He
doing
had the
about
technology to change that.
yeah, and he's lived his life as a black man not once in our lifetime, but like several times in human lifespans. So it's interesting. And then if you think about it, on a more real life level, right? Like blackness essentially is a construct that exists post colonialism, like enslavement and all of that nonsense, because people in Africa specifically weren't like, oh, we are black. They were their cultures, they were their nations, but like all of this destruction that was brought to their shores like created blackness. So in a sense it's like, and then obviously being black today, like depending on where you're from in the world or where your people are from, it's like that meaning shifts and changes. So yeah, I mean hypothetically, why wouldn't an alien who like shapeshifted to become a black man and was cool living, not only living as a black man but also freeing with other black people and identifying as a black person, yeah, I would count them as black, you know.
This is making me think of, this is a real tangent, so we may have to cut this or whatever.
No,
But
no, it's cool. You could.
the video game BioShock 2,
Mm.
and more specifically, I think it was the DLC for BioShock 2. The character in that you end up following and that you're trying to find is a guy who's a black scientist who y'all played BioShock. Like, do you guys know the basic
I
story?
know of. I still haven't played it yet. I know it's
Uh,
a good series.
I
I've had it
know it
recommended, but I haven't played it
exists.
yet. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it takes place in roughly the 50s and 60s, in which this guy who's sort of the equivalent of like Howard Hughes or Walt Disney, but also like a weird libertarian, builds a giant underwater city where all the most talented people can go to live and not be bothered by the rest of the world. And one of the people who, and of course it all goes to shit because he's a libertarian and they can't govern. And he, one of the
But they're
characters
full of ideas.
yeah, they're full of ideas. I mean, it's an interesting. Honestly, it's
They're
actually
all ideas.
I mean,
That's literally all
it's
they have.
it's a discussion for another time.
Oh
yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, we're
I
not
would
yet. We're
argue
not
Yeah.
that
delving into that.
there's
but
no
but
such thing as a
but
libertarian.
yes, God, that's a
Right.
whole other. But yeah, the second game DLC. Oh, and part of the thing is also that totally by accident, at the bottom of the ocean, they happen to discover this species of like sea slug that secretes something like a stem cell that basically means they can like shape your genetics like putty. So you can do whatever
Mhm.
you want and like splice superpowers and stuff. And there's in the DLC for BioShock 2, the character who you are sort of the guy you're following around, who's the most important character, is voiced by Carl Lumley, and he's a black scientist,
Okay,
a
yeah,
computer scientist. Yeah, he's great. There's a whole lot of great actors in it actually. He's a black computer scientist who talks about his experiences with, among other things, racism,
mm,
and trying to build a true artificial intelligence. And there's a part where he talks about having had a conversation with somebody who's like, well, we have this genetic engineering technology. Why don't you just splice yourself to look white? And he like immediately dismisses that as like, yeah, that's the dumbest thing you could possibly say. And
yeah,
it's a similar, I mean, it's roughly analogous to this idea of Icon being he's sort of black by choice, in the sense that he could undo it if he really wanted to, and it's
right.
not actually essential to his identity prior to landing on Earth. And yeah, I'm also interested to see whether they'll have any other changes for Icon's pre-Earth life, because in the original series there wasn't like the terrorist stuff. It was literally just like there was a malfunction and the ship went down and he was in a life pod.
Yeah.
And I mean, I kind of assume they changed it because they had to be like, well, if there's an escape pod, if there are all these escape pods, then why didn't any of the other ones land on Earth? I don't know. They had to come up with
Oh
some
yeah,
reasons.
no, I think they've thought about that, and I think they
Yeah,
also, there's the obvious thing, like even going back to Superman, when you have like a protagonist that's this strong, you need to figure out some ways to challenge them, and obviously, like this story, like I think challenges him just in like life, and not necessarily in the like superpower beings way, but like in creating this antagonist that goes right back to the crash. It leaves room
yeah.
for him to have this like long term
A
um
long-term enemy. Yeah, I do.
challenge. Yeah.
I did like that. I did like that he had a specific villain attached to him, which was something that the original Icon series never really had. Like
Mhm.
there was no character who was like Icon's arch nemesis. I mean,
Right.
there wasn't even a character who was like Rocket's arch nemesis. Like they were really kind of the city itself, in the same way that like well, no, not Alva is for hardware, but like the city as a whole, the city of Dakota has its corruption. I mean, the Big Bang itself is really their villain, in the sense that like that's the
Right.
thing they've spent all this time trying to investigate and
Yeah.
try to
I mean,
solve and so forth.
that's a good point because if anything was a through line for Icon in the original run, it was maybe the fact that his the words of what why am I forgetting who's the big guy who
Oh,
had
payback.
Payback? Yeah, yeah, Payback's words haunted him
Yeah,
essentially. You know what I mean? Because and he was just like, I need to look into this, and I need to uncover this which actually was a really cool thing in the original series because we've spoken a lot about how Icon is maybe more authority minded or more status quo than like a Rocket, obviously. And that's where one of the things where you see him maybe challenging his line of thought, because even when someone like getting the key from the mayor, after dealing with Payback, I forget exactly what is said, but there's definitely a feeling where he's like less rah rah about it, whereas you would
yeah.
think,
He just says
yeah,
to give a speech, and there's like he's trying to say something about how, well, this is just the beginning, when he's to investigate, blah blah blah, and then they like rush
right.
him off stage. Or isn't that what
Yeah.
happens? Yeah,
Yeah, that's what it was. That's what it was. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And even just the idea of him, sorry, real quick, but even the idea of him listening to Payback and like not just brushing off his words, I think the initial Icon we meet, who's very things are the way they are and the systems work and blah blah blah, like that's him challenging that. You know what I mean? And Rocket's definitely like challenged him, in school. And conversely, real quick, and then I'll stop because I know I'm going on. But like real
Oh,
quick, like what I'm saying, the other thing is one of the things I like about the Rocket and Icon dynamic is Rocket is right about a lot of things, and she challenges him on a lot of things. But in this series, it's not like they're like, oh, both sides, blah blah blah. It's more like Rocket is right, and she's also a kid. You know what I'm saying?
yes,
So like, there is certain things where like, which like, of course, she wouldn't think about the, um, repercussions of, creating a super rapid change in the economy. You know what I mean? And like and all of these things, because she is a kid, and you know, you think about fairness when you're a kid and what's fair. And like,
Yeah.
yeah, your community being disproportionately affected, or disproportionately policed, because we could talk about that with drugs too.
Oof, yeah.
How, you know, Black communities don't necessarily do more drugs, but drugs
They're
just
more
happen to
affected by, there's a,
and also just drug conviction is a lot higher with you know, Black people who
yes.
use and deal drugs versus white people who use and deal drugs. You know,
Yeah, they're
like
more
when they've
heavily
studied it,
policed.
like
They're more, yeah.
like the rates of use are even across racial lines when it comes to drugs, but it's just, you know, it's who is policed more, you know, harder. But we're not getting too deep into all of the
Some
politics today.
studies actually say us white boys do more cocaine.
I believe it.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, Wall Street.
When there
Look,
are
I
no
mean,
consequences, I mean, you can be a Supreme Court justice.
absolutely.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, but those guys, no,
You
see,
could
you
be
almost pulled me into it.
president.
You almost did it. Almost did it, Tad. We can talk about this on other. You know what? We should have this one politics episode. Just get it all out of our system.
I might skip that because it's just
Yeah,
too
me
depressing
too,
for me
actually.
sometimes.
Me too. Maybe we can make it fun. Maybe we can make it like
Do shots or something, you know.
or yeah, or we could like go through all the various like presidents represented in comics, like, you know, like
Ooh.
Marvel would they would dabble with having Reagan in the 80s. Okay, and then sometimes it would be like a fake president, a made up president. You know what I mean?
I'm trying to remember. Yeah, didn't
That's
Mark
mostly
Grunwald
what they
have
did
like
for the Trump years?
oh, God. Didn't
Yeah,
Mark
and
Grunwald
I think
have-
media in general has skipped acknowledging him. Have you noticed that? Like TV
There's-
shows, movies,
Yeah.
they mostly
There's-
don't.
Yeah, there's a couple comics I can think of that had characters who were
Oh yeah,
either parodies of or like acknowledgments of. Well, and
Yeah.
what was that one? Like letter 45, letter 44.
oh yeah, I like that. I never finished
Oh, that's
reading
so
that.
good.
I
but
only
did-
know the premise. I never read it. I just know
Yeah.
that like there's a. Anyway.
Yeah, well, ironically,
But that-
45 is
that-
not him because it happened. That series came out before he was.
Well,
Okay, that's like
it
an
was the
upcoming.
letter 244. I mean, that
Was it letter
that
44 or was it letter? Oh yeah, it
called
might have been letter 44.
but it was the letter from 43 to 44.
244. That's right.
Right.
I gotta read this series. I just know
Yeah,
I
'cause
just
that
know
came out
about the
years
premise.
Because it was very much set up as a Bush Obama handoff.
Okay.
Right.
I sorry,
Yeah.
didn't mean to send it off
That's a
on
brilliant
tangent.
series. That's one that would be worth doing.
I have to
doing
go
a
back to that because I was reading and I was really enjoying it, and then there was. I won't get too deep into it, but there was a life circumstance that dealt with like tragedy and grief, and it intersected with something in my life at the time, and I just was like, well, I'm not reading that anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you don't want to be.
I've had some
I know how
time.
that goes.
Yeah, I've had some time, and I feel like I could probably finish reading that.
Yeah, that was like Charles Soule's coming out party.
Yeah.
It was Charles Sewell. I totally forgot. Damn.
Yeah, it was early. It was what was that, like 2012 maybe? Or no, it would have been 2011-ish based on
because it was.
it's on the thing I just referenced. So yeah, like maybe
I gotta read. There's a lot of stuff I gotta catch up on.
I actually wound up getting all of the single issues on my birthday comic crawl a few
that's
years
cool.
ago.
I definitely have the single issues up to the point I read. And
I have not bought single issues of a series in so long. I only buy collections these days.
I came by a shop that was selling that had the whole thing bundled.
Nice. That's
And
If it's a bundle, that's
I
yes.
think I got it for like $45.
Yeah.
So all of the single issues.
Yeah.
like
I want to
$2
be
a
like
piece.
you Ted. Like I was strictly trade for a while, and then there's a series here, and I'm just like, oh man, I don't want to wait. And
No,
I do definitely.
I've been trying harder and harder to be trade and digital, but I'm
Yeah.
near there.
I have a few series where I'm like, I don't want to wait. I want to read it in a chunk. It's like I'd rather
completely.
wait in between. Like I'm like that with forgive me, Rodney Barnes, but I'm like that with Philadelphia because
Philadelphia.
I want to read that book in like an arc as opposed to like.
I have a tendency to read it in arcs, but I've still been getting the single issue.
Oh, you have,
I
yeah.
just have a
I
tendency to
kind of do though
snap
because I
out
see them
before I read
posting
them
about the
all.
exciting stuff that's
Right.
happening, and I'm like, oh man, I gotta wait. I gotta wait like 6 months for that.
I just did the massive reread of all of Matt Kinn's Mind Management, and like
Oh,
Mhm.
so
I would-
good.
I would have been so frustrated reading that in issues because
Yeah.
So,
it took forever. I mean,
want
it's
the
great, but like
issues I want the issues so I can get an even better look at all of the minutia.
There is that. Yes, that's true.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
that's got so much like weird, not even back matter, but like side matter. And no,
I will get to it. It's sitting
that's a
on my
whole other
bookshelf.
conversation.
At some point, I want to talk to Matt Kent just to ask how he managed to organize all of that while he was working.
God, there's a lot.
I imagine like a murder board with so much red string that it's not even funny.
Yeah.
I want to point out that the TV tropes site actually has a page for mind management that I did a large part creating. So it's thanks to me that I'm real proud of this.
I'm gonna read mind management now because I have it. It's on my shelf. I just haven't. I picked it up one day and I was like, this looks ambitious. I wasn't in a spot to. I was in a spot to read it, so I need to go back to it and actually read it.
It's definitely worth reading.
There are two books that I've book clubbed that because particularly when I do like in-person book clubs, I have a tendency to take notes and like sticky notes and slam them on pages, right? And I thought that my copy of My Favorite Thing is Monsters was filled with Post-its. And then we did my mind management. And I think there are more pages with 3 Post-its than there are pages with no Post-its.
That incidentally, that's my next book read. Is My Favorite Thing is Monsters, because one of my really good friends, Rye Hickman, it's his favorite book, and I gotta get on that.
And Volume 2 comes out next year. You can pre-order your copy at Fantagraphics already. I did.
Yeah.
My copy has been pre-ordered. I got to bug Emil again to come on the show because Emil's amazing. I've talked to him a few times.
Thanks. Yeah.
And anybody who hasn't read My Favorite Thing is Monsters should go read My Favorite Thing is Monsters.
That's another one that's sitting on my shelf. I will probably by next month I will have read it.
We'll see.
Back to Icon and Rocket.
It's a
Oh, okay.
Both of those books are dense, big reads. I mean,
probably in the next 6 months. Yeah, you're right. I'm definitely not taking on it. All right,
and My Favorite Thing is Monsters is like 400 pages.
Damn.
Yeah. Getting back to Icon and Rocket. I mean, I feel like we should wrap it up at some point.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of if there was anything else. Oh, I kept meaning to ask about this because I genuinely don't remember. So in Static Season 1, one of the big changes that I forgot to mention, his dad is a major character. And I was trying to remember if/when Static's dad shows up in the original series, because he gets mentioned.
Right. So you see him a little bit, and actually on the subject, I do think it's pretty cool. A lot of versions of Static, like the TV series and this story, they kind of model him after Dwayne McDuffie, which is like a nice little nod and nice touch. But yeah, like his dad does show up, but you're right, it is a little bit later. Like I think you run into his mom, you kind of see his dad, like I think rushing out the door, or he's rushing out the door. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like it's a little bit later. And like we mentioned, I think that there's a concerted effort with modern Static to really put the entire family at the center of it and really show them as a tight unit,
Yes.
Like,
I mean, one of the things I really loved about Static Season 1 was that scene where it's him and his dad like fixing the roof and they have a real like heart-to-heart conversation.
Yeah.
That I thought was really well done. Like that. Yeah. I like that his dad played a bigger role. I was racking my brain. I'm like, crap, did he show up in the original series and like win? And I go back to like the first few issues and he gets mentioned, but like doesn't show up for a while. So going back to Static Season 1, like comparing it especially to Icon and Rocket is interesting. Because Icon and Rocket, I mean, you have that team dynamic, and I kind of feel like I mean, again, I know I've said it's not my favorite, and it's part of it is because they have a whole lot more plot lines they're juggling. And I think that part of why Static Season 1 was a read I enjoyed more was because everything was about Static. Like everything ended up revolving around him, and he was the through line on everything. Whereas in this, like, I mean, I just kind of did a quick page through and I realized that like the whole first like 3 or 4 or 5, well, like first 3 issues really are the let's end the drug trade issues. Issue 4, they go back to Dakota and fight Benedict Lord. And issue 5 is kind of a breather before the real climax. And it also has what really kind of should have been the climax, which is when Raquel like stands up in her classroom and is like, okay, here's what Icon and Rocket have tried to do. Here's why the world hasn't changed. Here's what superheroes can and can't do, which I thought was an interesting speech, especially with Static around. And then the last issue is just them finding Lord again, which I thought was a little, I don't know, I felt a little deflated because as much as I disliked the idea of taking Icon and Rocket out of Dakota and making them international characters, the fact that then at the end of it they went back to just fighting this one dude who hates Icon, well, who hates all aliens, I guess, but like kind of dragged it down a little bit for me. And
I guess I think the arc was very much building towards that one way or the other. I get it that like, depending, mileage might vary for how it lands, how it, the way it was handled lands for a person. But
yeah,
like,
and I always, I mean, I'm very careful. Like I don't think this was a bad comic, and I definitely don't like if people like this, yes, absolutely. It wasn't what I was expecting or wanting from an Icon and Rocket comic, but that's me. Like that's my takeaway on it. It's not. I'm not making a world of
It's interesting what you mentioned. I like that you referenced that moment in the classroom where Raquel talks about what superheroes can and can't do. Because in a large way, I think it's not the only theme of this season one, but it's like one of the main themes. You know what I mean? In the sense of, because like we've lived with superheroes for so long, since the 30s, right?
Almost 100 years.
Yeah, literally almost 100 years. Yeah. And so, like for so long, it was like the archetypes. And it's like, look, they got a secret identity because that's what you have in your superhero. They wear their underwear on the outside of the pants because that's what you do. There's so many things where it's like,
I mean,
we just have to fit it into this
for
mold.
superheroes, I think we'd all be doing that now. But
oh, absolutely.
They made it unfashionable.
Wait, what do you mean if?
Well,
wait. You guys are seeing me on a Zoom stream. You don't know what my outfit is. But anyway,
we're all like, we're afraid to do it because we think the supervillains will think that we have powers.
Right. Right.
So our underwear stays heated.
Yeah. They've you're really speaking for everybody unnecessarily, The
figure of the superhero has set fashion back by 100 years.
Right. But my point, while this is the most important aspect of discussion about superheroes, my larger point is that, like, as time is going on and we've lived with superheroes for so long, like, I do like that different writers have really thought about, like, all right, like, how would that really play out in our world with like all the systems, everything we have, and so yeah, I do think that question of like what can superheroes fix, what can't they, is a thing, because like as I've gotten older, right, we've all grown up with various forms of propaganda and everything, and what's the solution when you're a kid? It's like, oh, if the bad guys do bad stuff, they get tied up and everything. Old Spider-Man comics never dealt with the fact that those guys were back out on the street immediately. Like, where's the evidence? Like, you know what I mean? It's like, but the idea was you never saw after because Spidey's webs dissolve in an hour, and then he webs them up, the police get him down, and then they lock him up and everything. But obviously, half the time, where's the evidence, Spidey? And like, they're back out on the street.
They have good lawyers.
Yeah, so like I think it's kind of cool when they kind of they challenge like, well, is it that neat? Like, can you really punch your problems away?
Yeah, and there are different approaches to answering that question, and I feel like they've been more or less different approaches have been more or less successful. I mean, you got stuff like Kick-Ass, which tries to answer the question of what would it really look like for a kid on the street. I don't think very successfully. That's a whole other question. But then you've got stuff like Watchmen, or hell, even The Authority, where it's like, what if you had a super team that actually had, or at least one person who actually had this level of power? Right. What would end up being their role in international affairs? What would they end up doing, etc.? I mean, I got a couple of pictures in my back pocket that I will happily talk at length about, but like about what the superhero. It's not a coincidence, I think, that superheroes evolved in America, a country that had an extremely strong tradition in the 1930s of vigilantism, and like that whole idea of we should be able to, like we should be able to take the law into our own hands is a statement that's really terrifying when spoken by like a mob of white guys in the 1930s. And like there's, as much as superheroes are, I think, a much better, a more, morally positive expression of that idea, like they're still growing up, as it were, in a country where there's a major part of our history that involves lynching. There's some really awful stuff that have been done by guys who decide to hide their identities and do what they think is necessary to protect their community.
Yeah,
like
no,
there's
100%.
Yeah, there's some dark crap. There's some dark shit when you think about like what vigilantism looks like in America, and how that plays into like what the police see themselves as. Why does every policeman have like Punisher bumper stickers? That's like
don't get me started on that.
Yeah, that's sorry. We're going down politics.
No.
I don't want to.
No, you can reference it. I'm just saying it's a thing that pushes my button to no end. And it's also like you are really obviously the whole serve and protect, which that's a whole bag of worms. But the idea that like, oh, you are this just figure you're identifying with a man who is a cold-blooded killer. You can justify, and then like if we're being real, this is part of why like I loved Punisher as a teenager. I've just really grown away from him as the older I get, because like if you look at when those comics came out, they're kind of a love letter to Bernard Getz, like or these guys who just were like, New York is a cesspit, or Taxi Driver, and again. Don't get me started on Taxi Driver, because I will eviscerate that film. But it's yes, to your point, yes, I 100% agree. Like the whole idea of vigilantism in real life, it's been so sanitized and packaged to be like, no, they're just vigilantes. Like
and it's eventually you get to the point where you realize that Batman literally is just like an American police officer because he has an infinite amount of money and no idea what to spend it on. And I think the solution is not to stop publishing Batman comics, but to like rethink of Batman and basically just have him fight costumed guys. Like make him
exactly. No, that's what that's my take. Because I still, despite all of my critiques, I do still like Batman. But I like some people telling of Batman better than others. And like, some writers have definitely challenged the idea of his privilege and his wrongheadedness. And I do like the idea of him focusing not on street level criminals, you know what I mean, but like on maybe the
goofy
weirdos
criminals
that are too big for Gordon and them to handle.
That's the better version of Batman, where it's like extraordinary problems require extraordinary solutions. He's not the guy who's going around punching out multi-ethnic gangs like Grunwald loved to have. It's another podcast I love.
I love that because I definitely like often will joke about the Benetton gangs, but like I love calling it like a Grunwald gang. Like maybe we should coin that.
There's this other podcast I really like called War Rocket Ajax just did this thing where they were looking at the entirety of Grunwald's Captain America run, which was like more than 10 years. And they specifically kept a list of like all the various gang names that they used over the course of that comic, because it's rip and tear, microwave. I don't even remember all the dumb tire iron, really stupid gang. And of course, in order to pretend like this is like gangs are not code words for black youths, they had
I saw through that as a kid. I was like, I see what you guys are doing. Like you guys are trying to have it both ways, and like
that's that again, like getting into how the superhero has often sort of been a figure in conversation with racial and other depictions of violence, and in conversation with theories of criminality. A lot of times in the 80s it was literally about, oh no, we're worried about black teenagers, but we can't like make it about black people because then we would be racist, and we can't be racist, so let's just make sure that there's like half the gang is white guys. Which it's comics, man.
It's fascinating, and like this is a big tangent, but like I think we've talked about this, but there's that G.I. Joe yearbook number 3. You guys remember that? It's like, it's basically I actually have it in the other room, but it's there's this really cool like all silent story. It's like there's no words.
Silent interlude,
like, yeah, you know what I'm talking about, And like there's a scene on the train where we're a multi-ethnic gang. like, goes after Storm Shadow, who's in the trench coat. And I remember this scene like all throughout. I actually lost this issue, for years, and I found a copy later on. But I remember this scene like so much. And he like in one swipe, like one dude has a mohawk, black dude has afro, and then I forget what the other guy's hair was like, but he chopped like a chunk of everybody's hair off in one swipe and left. But the one thing that was, because I was listening to a news story that was really looking back at the whole Bernard Getz thing, recently. And they were talking about how there was this, what was proven to be like bullshit, this idea that like, oh, he did what he did because he saw one of the dudes had a sharpened screwdriver. And apparently, like at the end of the day, it turned out that that just was not the case. And that was, not only was it not corroborated, but it just wasn't true. You know what I mean? And like, I remembered when I heard that, it does jog something in my memory. And I was like, I remember in that G.I. Joe yearbook issue, one of the gang members, of course it was the white guy, in order to like, nullify the reference to Bernard Getz, but the dude had like a little screwdriver, you know what I mean? And like,
Yeah.
so it's like it was all in those comics of the 80s, and look,
Yeah.
I still, despite everything,
Yeah.
dig Dark Knight Returns.
And I
But
shouldn't, and like, not to make fun of Grunwald either, because I think Grunwald
yeah,
was very aware of. I mean, he
he
has
was, because he
Captain.
did some cool stuff with Cap. He did,
Yeah,
and
he had Cap like reacting to. I mean, can't believe this war on drugs thing is happening. Are people falling for
yeah,
it? Like he had,
he did do
his
some.
Cap was smarter than I think it's coming off at. Like I described it as. But yeah, like
Yeah.
yeah,
No, I'm not writing. I'm definitely. I hear what you're saying. 'Cause I
yeah,
wasn't writing him off. I do think that
no,
those things, and by far, he was not the only
no.
writer doing that. Like, there's
Yeah,
so much worse. Like some
yeah.
other friends of mine, like, who are Latino. Like, we joke a lot about, like, the representations, the just representations of these Latino gangs in those comics, and also the fact that Marvel in the '80s, in order to try to, they were kind of like, all right, like, here's the specific Doc Martens dye combination that we use for black people, here's the one we use for white people, and we need to color Latino people like differently, so the color they came up with is like a grayish brown, you know what I mean, that nobody
Yeah.
looks like. And yeah, so it's there was just so much
Who's the
weirdness.
who was the colorist who had that really fascinating essay a few years ago, specifically about?
Oh,
Yeah,
geez, it was
Was it a
I feel like
colorist
this
or
is
was
somebody I've
that
spoken to.
Wimberly?
it might have been.
Ron Wimberly
I think you're
spoke
right.
about
Yeah,
it.
I thought it
Yeah,
was a.
he
I thought
wrote
it was a
about his
colorist explicitly.
experiences. Yes,
She-Hulk.
He did it at the Nib.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And
Okay.
one of the I actually got to, when I interviewed him, we talked about that. Like, because he
Yeah,
had wanted to yeah, yeah. I forget which character they were messing with him over, but
it's
it was,
here.
yeah,
It's called Lighten Up. I'll throw it
yeah.
in the
It's a
chat
great
right
essay,
now.
actually. Yeah,
It
yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Maybe you put in the show notes for people.
When and
It's
if I get to the show notes, I'm like
Yeah,
months
not trying to give
behind
you
on
work,
show
Tab,
notes.
but
yeah.
you do.
Yeah, we're kind of we're going all over the place on this episode.
Months
Definitely, yeah,
behind on show notes.
yeah.
um
Okay. But
anyway,
yeah, I
Put
guess
it in
we
show notes
should wrap it
before
up though.
though.
yeah.
But there you go. At the
Okay.
the dearly departed Nib.
Yeah.
Go
Yeah.
Rest in peace.
donate to them anyway so their archive stays up.
And didn't they print? Did they print a collection or two?
They did I think quarterly comics. You can get all of you can download digital versions of all of them for free
Nice.
at the Nib now.
Okay.
Actually their last comic, I gotta love it. The last comic they published was Maya Kobabe. I made the most banned book in America.
I think is it Kobabe? I'm trying to remember.
It might be.
Okay. My friend Rye Hickman is friends with M, and they said they told me how to pronounce their name, and I don't remember it now. Anyway, sorry, I should get off this topic. I don't actually know anything. I wasn't sure, and I was like, wait, shit, no, I don't know. I'm bored.
The author of Gender Queer.
There we go. Yes.
You got their pronoun.
I
You got air pronoun correctly.
I wasn't. I was really trying.
Even though I love it, but it's a harder one for me to remember because it's not even in the.
It's Spivak pronouns. Is that the term? I think I don't remember. Anyway.
I think so.
Yeah. I try. At my day job, I'm also helping with the GSA at the school where I work, so I'm trying to make sure I get everything. But that's a whole other story. Anyway,
Yeah.
um, yeah, Icon of Rocket Volume Volume One.
Yes.
Has the second season come out yet,
It
or
hasn't
is it?
because I think Icon and
Hardware
Hardware.
versus Icon.
Yeah. Although obviously, Rocket plays a role in that series as well. Actually, yeah, I do want to shout out the creators, Doug
Oh,
Braithwaite and is it Brandon Thomas that's writing this? Or no, Reginald Hudlin.
No,
Reginald Hudlin. Yeah, sorry.
Reginald.
Brandon
Hudland
Thomas
and
is
Leon Chills.
yeah. But yeah, like great creative teams. I think
Yeah.
Doug Braithwaite like is really good at capturing like environments and just some of these like large battle scenes and
Yeah,
everything.
the big fights are excellent as well, specifically. Yeah, I mean, I again, like even if, as I kept saying, this was not my favorite sort of iteration of Icon and Rocket, like I don't, this is not a bad comic by any means. This is
Yeah,
a phenomenal piece of work. I do appreciate that they're trying to update the characters while keeping to the core of what they are and who they are. It's not quite what I wanted, but it's definitely like it's still great stuff.
This is why it's dangerous to want things.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and in all fairness, it's kind of like being the age we are. You know, it's like we are old enough where the capitalist machine is bringing, and not just capitalist,
Yeah.
but just the nostalgia machine is bringing back things that
Well,
we
go
enjoyed
read Box
previously, and
Brown's The He-Man Effect, or listen to
yeah,
our podcast on it. One or the
okay,
other.
all right. No, but like yeah, and like it's interesting because my technique is to try to like and I'm not obviously we're all our own individual selves. I do try to like clear my expectations as much as possible,
Yeah.
with these things just because it's inevitable we're going to compare them. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But like I try to just
I
be like, all right, like what are the creators tackling here? Like
Yeah, and if this is
the
somebody's first version of Milestone of Icon and Rocket, what are they specifically getting out of it? What's the, what is this doing? What's the Roger Ebert quote where he said like how to judge a film is like what is it trying to do and how effective is it at doing that?
yeah.
It's something like that. Like that's I mean, yeah, that's
no,
ideally how you want to be judging these things.
I
There's
know
a lot of yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say for me, what I always think about is my years as a music geek. Specifically, there are two things that stand out to me that have helped me get much better at taking any piece of artwork on its own, regardless of who it's created by and whatnot. The first is from Monster on. I hated almost every REM album the first time I listened to it, and by the third time I listened to it, I loved it.
Mm.
And the second is Nick Hornby wrote an album that Ben Folds put out. That Ben Folds did the music, so it was an album together. I'm like, oh wow, my favorite writer, who's also a music geek, wrote an album for one of my favorite musicians. So I was excited as hell to get it, and I played it. I'm like, huh? And then I realized, wait a minute, I expected it to be a Ben Folds album.
Mm.
But Nick Hornby's musical taste is not only widespread, but as much as he likes just the man and his piano, he's really into Motown. He's really into Stax. He's really into, I need to go listen to it again. And I'm like, oh my God, this is Ben Folds making a perfect Nick Hornby.
That's interesting. Yeah, because you
And
got to know
now
what
it's
to
one of like
expect.
my all-time favorite albums, period. Not just my favorite Ben Folds album, but it all had to do with, and for that matter, in a similar iteration, Joe Posnanski, who's like my favorite baseball writer, wrote about how he judges films, and the reason that for him the Phantom Menace is the worst movie of all time isn't because he thinks it's worse than Plan 9 from Outer Space and worse than this and worse than that. He's like, first you have to take what your expectation was and then where it comes in, and then try to watch it again without the expectation, and where it still is, And then you've got, complicated algorithms. So what it is that his expectation was through the roof. It failed miserably. And then he tried to watch it with no expectations, and it was still bad.
See, I would argue with that viewpoint. It's impossible. I even think about myself trying to separate. Well, and I've tried to do the same thing actually.
Trying to
Phantom Menace is tough, but
both
well, what I will say
and Attack of the Clones have actually grown on me just a little bit.
Yeah,
and it's
the second
because I work with so many people,
right,
who
grew up on it, right?
Grew up on it, so I get to see it through their eyes.
See it through their eyes.
My kids grew up with it.
Yeah.
I still disagree with everybody who says that Revenge of the Sith was actually good.
Yeah, that's not good.
Look,
Now, we transition now to our Star Wars podcast.
Yeah, which we've done before. Yeah. I would say just real briefly, like I will say the same thing you said about. I had a realization one time when I was going off on some comic book guy, like, excoriation of the prequels, and somebody in my life was like, oh, I really like those,
right.
And I just was like, oh man, I'm the asshole, and and at that point I just was like, you know what, like every Star Wars is somebody's Star Wars. Also, if we're being really real, I say this to people all the time when they're going off on new Star Wars stuff. There's so much silly stuff in the original trilogy.
Oh yeah,
if you're telling it, no, not you. No, I know you're not saying this. But it's my thing with
not an objectively good movie.
What is it? I mean,
A New Hope is not an objectively good movie.
It's a movie that captured. No, I will get. Look, see, all right, we really will go into the Star Wars.
Yeah, this is a whole other.
I'll just say really briefly. I'll just say really briefly. I still really dig A New Hope, and none of the great stuff. No, I know you're not saying that, but I'm just saying for me, none of the. It's hard to separate because I've tried to ask myself this because, like, I remember like Rogue One came out. I loved Rogue One, and I was like, oh, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna watch Rogue One and then watch New Hope, and it's hard to do because it's like being on like something that's going like 60 miles an hour and you slam on the brakes.
Really mediocre dialogue and really mediocre acting.
Sure.
And is so important anyway because it opened the door. Yeah, it opened all sorts of doors, and it was just fun. So you'll forgive a lot when it's fun.
Yeah.
But I mean, like I had a kid at school trying to tell me that the new Indiana Jones movie sucked, and I'm like, I mean, if it did, then so does every Indiana Jones movie not named Raiders of the Lost Ark. And comparing Indiana Jones to Raiders of the Lost Ark, or comparing anything to Raiders of the Lost Ark, just isn't fair. Raiders of the Lost Ark is like the perfect version of a treasure hunter adventure movie.
And a Predator.
But Predator's its own thing, I think. But
no. So Indiana Jones is he's also a Predator.
Well, there's that too. Well, he's refusing the advances of the Stuart. Well, no, but not the American. Anyway, that's a whole one. Sorry, that's a whole other conversation. Never mind.
Raiders of the Lost Ark established that the age difference was illegal. Anyway,
we're a whole other conversation. Sorry about this.
He's no hero of mine. Well, go back and watch the movie. Listen to the dialogue between Marion and Indiana Jones.
You're right.
Not good.
You're right.
Not good. You can still enjoy the film, but I'm saying that aspect of it.
Be aware.
Good. Yeah. It's his version of Icon working for the feds.
Yeah. That. Yeah.
But worse.
But yeah, so next week I guess we move on to
Lost Ark for me, Marcus.
I'm sorry, man. I noticed it, so you have to notice it.
He's not wrong. So next week, are we moving on to Hardware season 1?
Yeah, next month. I mean,
or
if
next
you want
month.
to do next week.
No,
I'm
busy.
Swing it, but
next month, it could be next month. It could be next month. Yeah.
Oof. Well, cool.
I mean, he did eventually marry Marion. That doesn't matter at all. She came back.
Let's continue this conversation off the air. We'll work on it.
I'm grimacing for anybody who's only listening to the audio version.
I can hear you grimace. Anyway,
it's a house on a shaky foundation is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, but yes. This was real, and
This was good. I mean, I do as much as I might be seeming to complain about these comics. Again, like I like them a lot. They're very good things. I might even add these to my collection at the middle school. Well,
yeah,
probably worth it.
I mean, look, Ted, you're a writer. You're gonna be looking at, you know what I mean?
nitpick.
Like, it's cool. We
Yeah.
get it. We get it. It's cool. I mean, and I don't think that any of your, even when like, we have a different like view on it. I never feel like you're coming at it from some kind of, I don't know. I get
Personal.
it. I get it.
Yeah.
It's cool, man.
That's good. Awesome.
Also, for the brothers Anderson, not related. This has been the 22 panels. Wow.
Yeah. That we know of.
Milestone.
That we know of.
Oh,
Not
did you?
related.
Yeah. I mean,
Never.
are you trying to make aspersions about Ted's great grandfather?
I mean,
No,
things have happened.
not either way. I'm not saying how it, I would hope that it, if we are then related, then it's in a good way, the best possible ways. But I don't,
Brotherhood of man.
I don't,
We're all in the brotherhood
yes.
of man.
Yeah. In our souls.
In our
In our souls.
This has been the 22 panels Milestone Book Club. We'll see you after the next page.
Hey guys, this is Tyler from 22 Panels. I'm here to tell you all about our Patreon. If you enjoy this show, please consider donating to our Patreon to keep this show going. We have many different tiers, all different levels to help you decide what's right for you. Okay, so get on out there to patreon.com/22panelspodcast.